Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 most popular stories on our websites and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving us a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine, so you can join us when we go live every Thursday. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. Jeff, how you doing this week?
I'm good, David. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, ran into a couple of technical difficulties at first, but, we're up and running. We're good.
We got there.
Yeah, we got there. I mean, I got to say, when it comes to, things I've done versus technical difficulties, I think I'm still really heavy on the scale for the reason we were late.
Well, I contributed a little bit today, so why don't you can just put the blame on me. It's fine.
Okay. Way to go, Jeff.
Yeah, my bad.
Anna, how are you doing this week?
Good, and I would like to note that I'm absolved fully from why we're late.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of the reasons in the room, you're the only one that wasn't one. And I was like, it's 2, I'm ready. And everyone else is just like, good? We will see you in there. No, it's going to be a great episode, though. Going to be a great episode.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get started with our first story this week, we have a word from our new sponsor, Better Engineering. Looking for the ultimate industrial washing system for your facility? Better Engineering delivers state-of-the-art industrial part washers tailored for manufacturing, food, and pharmaceutical processing. We integrate automation and robotics to eliminate hand washing, increasing throughput and water savings while using eco-friendly chemistry. Whether you need custom or stock cleaning systems, we've got you covered. Built to last, American quality stainless steel systems, Better Engineering, engineering cleaning solutions for a better tomorrow. Visit betterengineering.com to revolutionize your cleaning process today. Sorry, that was, wait, go back there real quick. Visit betterengineering.com to revolutionize your cleaning process today. There was an exclamation point.
Yeah.
You got to hit it.
You do have to hit it
I
at
think
the
you
end.
need to pause after process and then really hit today hard.
Okay.
You know what? There'll be
Next
do it again.
process.
Yeah, do it later.
Today!
Oh, yeah, we got it. In case you missed it. Okay.
Do it again.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Hold me back, though. Wait, pause.
Wait for it.
Yeah. In terms of reads, though, they nailed it.
Pretty
All
good.
right. Our first story this week. America's first approved Gen 4 nuclear reactor is under construction. Did I say nuclear or nuclear? I don't want to make sure I don't say nuclear. Because last time I said nuclear, Mark just really put me through the ringer. Nuclear. Construction has begun in Oak Ridge, Tennessee on the Hermes low-power demonstration reactor from Kairos Power. The first and only Gen 4 reactor approved for construction by the U.S. Nuclear, right? Did I get it again? I got it. Okay. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Hermes is the first non-light water reactor allowed in the U.S. in more than 50 years. At the same time, Kairos and Bernard Construction, a heavy civil construction company also working on Hermes, will work on an engineering test unit, a non-nuclear demonstration that will generate supply chain, construction, and operational experience to inform the Hermes project. According to the company, this iterative approach will allow lessons learned from ETU 3.0 civil construction to transfer seamlessly to the Hermes facility. Both Hermes and ETU 3.0 will be built using modular construction techniques piloted at Kairos Power's testing and manufacturing campus in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Reactor modules will be fabricated in Albuquerque and shipped to Oak Ridge for assembly, demonstrating the potential of a factory-built small modular reactor designed to transform conventional nuclear construction. Targeted to be operational in 2027, Hermes will be Kairos Power's first nuclear build. The fluoride salt-cooled high-temperature reactor will leverage proven technologies, including a novel combination of tri-structural isotropic-coated particle fuel and Fleeb molten fluoride salt coolant. Nailed it.
Define, please.
I will. No, I got that in the notes. The reactor should be safer and simpler and prove that it can make affordable nuclear heat. The project won't make electricity. That's important to note. Kairos Power will invest at least $100 million and create 55 new jobs. The U.S. Department of Energy is going to invest up to $303 million through performance-based milestones. Jeff, lot to unpack there, especially how one email from loyal listener Mark really is in my head about how I say nuclear, which I'm pretty sure I nailed at least 60% of the time. But your thoughts on kind of a real innovative step when it comes to power generation in the United States.
After you go through that lengthy explanation, what I really want to say is I think it's really good. And just stop there.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
They nailed it.
Yep. It is interesting when you look at these types of plants. And at first, when you look at the amount of money that goes into this and the amount of development, and it's just a pilot plant, essentially, I think you can be a little skeptical. And I think once I started digging into it, I got past that pretty fast.
Yeah.
Because this is pretty amazing what they're able to do. The one that blew me away is with this new particle that they've developed and that they're using as their fuel source. It's the equivalent of 4 tons of coal.
Yeah.
So when you look at what that could do from an environmental perspective, what you could do from just a power generation perspective, from a scaling up perspective, if this works out the way they want it to, in terms of really solving a lot of the grid issues that we are going to run into without a shadow of a doubt with this conversion to electric vehicles and really just even beyond personal transportation, if we get into public transportation and fleets, also depending on EVs, this is a place that we really want to look and potentially overcoming some of those issues with generating all that power that we're going to need. Even though this one's just making heat, not electricity at this point because it's scaling up. The one unfortunate thing is the fact that we don't have any place to put all the heat that it's generating, but it is an interesting scale up because if this works out and this functions the way they want to, this could also be scaled down potentially to be used at a production facility where that heat for a number of different processing operations would come in very useful.
Very good point.
Very extremely efficient. One of the things they talk about too with these Gen 4 reactors is creating hydrogen. So again, if we're eliminating the use of fossil fuels to create hydrogen, that sort of puts a shot in the arm a lot of those application developments. We've seen hydrogen coming into play, again, with fleets, with vehicles, airplanes, all of that kind of stuff. So the potential and the things that this thing could lead to
so early.
He said it a different way.
is pretty cool and very impressive. So it will be interesting to see how this one plays out. You know, they're not going to get scaling up until 2027, or that's when it'll actually be done. And that's the other thing too, with the actual construction of it, much more cost effective. So a lot of different things playing out here that could come to fruition.
So is it, now we're talking about the new fuel source that's the size of a poppy seed, right?
Well, I'm talking about like the actual, the whole ball.
Oh, okay.
But that whole ball is still, it's kind of between like a baseball and a ping pong ball.
I think they said, like ping pong ball, something in size. Yeah. So still like incredible.
Yeah.
Still less than 4 tons.
4 tons?
4 tons, yeah.
Just, there's a bit of a difference.
Decent trade.
Yeah. Anna, what are your thoughts on the process that they're taking in terms of, you know, a modular approach and they're also kind of like building the demo or the test while they're building the full scale plant.
Yeah, I thought the whole thing was pretty cool because they talk about taking an iterative approach just to like not just to the technology and proving that out, but also to their factory. And I think it's just such a smart way to tackle this because it's not exactly new territory, but it might as well be after 50 years on the shelf. Like we have to take this, I think, slow and carefully and make sure that this works, right? I like to see the private-public collaboration that we're getting out of this, especially, needing to explore nuclear as a way to unburden an overtaxed electrical grid. But, it's hard to get that done one way or the other, like fully private entity and all the regulatory hurdles that come with that and all the investment, or like, the government taking that on. It's just, there's so many things happening right now. So to collaborate there, you're seeing a lot of local entities in Tennessee get involved with this as well, county and state programs as well. watching them engage in what looks like a very slow step-by-step process, it just felt really refreshing to me. A nice change from that whole go fast and break stuff model, that harried pace that we've seen from other industries. So I found a case study that was published by the National Energy Institute in 2021 that talked about how Kairos then was following a development model along the lines of, they described it as build a little, study and test, then build again. At the time, Per Peterson, who is Chief Nuclear Officer at Kairos, which is so cool to, I don't know, what a cool title. Anyway.
Yeah, he won LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly. So he said, demonstrating Hermes confirms you can license it. It confirms you can get it to operate. It confirms that you understand what your costs are and that your supply chain works, which like all those things, man, I don't know. It just felt like a breath of fresh air when you consider how many projects blew up, like figuratively, in the past few years because of miscalculations or over-ambitious planning that like completely fell apart when it was game time. Good old-fashioned rushing, which I think we're going to talk a little bit more about as it pertains to Boeing coming up here on the podcast. But I think when you consider the high stakes of clean energy and specifically nuclear power, you need this to work the first time. You can't screw it up. From a functional perspective, yes, like there's going to be a lot of tweaking that happens as they go. But like from a safety perspective, like there's no room for error on this because this project, you can't screw it up and get a second chance on this. People are just too edgy about nuclear, I think, You got to get buy-in. You got to show like a demonstration that this works. So the fact that they're doing it in such a way, I think it shows that the project is in really good hands. I'm glad to see a lot of cooks in the kitchen, honestly, because I feel like that's good due diligence.
Well, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, but they're all working together. You're right. And it's crazy that something as simple as taking a more crawl, walk, run approach is refreshing.
I know. You'd think that would be par for the course, but whatever. What do I know?
Well, I get why this was huge with all of our audiences, right? Because it's incredible from a design engineering perspective. It's incredible from an advanced manufacturing perspective. And it's even kind of cool from like a distribution supply chain perspective. It checks every box in our portfolio. Now, you wanted a little bit more context on the TRISO, or the tristructural isotropic particle, Jeff?
Begging for it.
So I went to ultrasafenuclear.com, which obviously non-biased.
Ultra safe
nuclear. This particle is a uranium-bearing sphere the size of a poppy seed that's coated with a special ceramic layers designed like tiny pressure vessels. So really cool. And a lot in a real tiny. That's why
ultra safe.
I was thinking, what?
And ultra safe. Ultra
safe. That's why I thought you were saying like the 4 tons compared to this poppy seed. I'm like, my goodness. But I also found, it takes a lot of buy-in from the community around it, but this community is used to this type of development coming out of Oak Ridge, the Oak Ridge area. I actually thought it was really cool where they're building this. Yeah. They're building it on the site of the old K25 Oak Ridge gaseous diffusion plant. And the project they mentioned is going to continue to distinguish like the region's legacy in this area and promote its resurgence as a hub of advanced nuclear innovation. So just a little bit on K25, because the more I looked it up, like the cooler it was. K25 opened in 1945. It cost $500 million. I don't know what $500 million in 1945 bucks is, but more. The plant employed 12,000 workers, and it was a U-shaped building that was half a mile long, 1,000 feet wide, and larger than the Pentagon. And I was also, I know that I lack in the history, but
I was gonna say it goes beyond that.
No, I know, but just looking into this, I was like, why do I not know more about this building? Construction began before they even completed the design for gaseous diffusion processes. They didn't know how they were going to design it or how they were going to make it. And at the time, this town of Oak Ridge was small, right? It was originally designed for 13,000 people, and it grew to 50,000 by the summer of 1944, just before K25 opened. Gaseous diffusion, that is one of 3 isotope separation processes that made uranium-235, which went into the weapon Little Boy that was used in Hiroshima. So Jeff, you're familiar with K-25?
Yeah, I mean, I read that book, The Girls of Atomic City,
Okay.
and it goes into all of that. So, I mean, it goes back, Oak Ridge was, I mean, these were peach fields, peach tree fields. I mean, basically the U.S. spent $1 billion creating a town and then bringing in people from all over the country, none of which exactly knew what they were working on.
Yeah.
But it all came together at some point when they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. That's when everybody sort of clicked like, that's what we were doing. So
That's
pretty
so
crazy.
strange.
All right, our next most popular story this week. Boeing 737 factory suffered from severe morale and turnover problems prior to the blowout. The NTSB has released some 3,000 pages of documents about the incident on January 5th, 2024, when a Boeing 737 door plug blew out of an Alaskan Airlines flight about 16,000 feet above Oregon. But questions remained about what happened on the manufacturing floor. Well, this week, the NTSB held a 2-day hearing to gain insight into the root cause of the failures behind the blowout. On the first day of the hearing, testimony revealed a grim company culture, with workers at Boeing feeling pressured to work too fast and partners that were treated even worse. According to transcripts of conversations between the NTSB investigators and workers, and this is all via CNN, one worker identified as an assembler said, quote, "We were definitely trying to put out too much product. That's how mistakes are made. People try to work too fast." Another employee said rework was common, which is how the door plug ended up missing bolts. The plug was taken out to fix some rivets, and the bolts were neglected when it was replaced. The worker said his team was in, quote, uncharted waters, frequently replacing door plugs without any special training, and the problems were consistent. They said these planes came in, quote, jacked up every day. Spirit Aerosystems, the company that made the fuselage in the incident, did have employees on the plant floor. But the two staffs didn't exactly play nice. One Spirit employee told investigators that workers felt like, quote, the cockroaches of the factory. FAA inspectors said they were unable to substantiate claims about workers being pressured, but a Boeing team captain admitted that the 737 factory suffered from problems with morale and turnover resulting from job-related stress. Now, Jeff, I understand that there might be a little of a creative license, but to think that you were looked as the cockroaches of the factory, that has to be difficult when you're doing your job every day.
Without a doubt. And I don't want to dismiss all of those culture issues, which, I mean, we kind of were guessing towards anyway. When we were talking about all these Boeing stories, I think we were all pretty much unanimously saying they've got an issue there with the culture and not paying attention to detail and time constraints and all of that.
We guessed that, but was this worse than you expected it to be?
But not probably in the area you're expecting me to say, because I can appreciate the fact that when you've got that difficult work environment, yes, it's obviously going to have an impact on the quality of work. But at the end of the day, your job is not about, a computer working correctly. It is not about making sure your desk chair doesn't collapse. You have 200,000 people conservatively on these planes every single day. There is a level of accountability and responsibility that goes beyond your supervisor, beyond your work environment, and has to register on a personal level as well. If you don't know what you're doing, you have to find out how to do it correctly. So while this definitely went into great depth in terms of all the issues that Boeing had, I don't like the fact that it dismissed a little bit of the personal accountability that also needs to fall on these individual workers who are doing this stuff. If they were not trained correctly, agreed. Then they need to go back to step one, and that's a Boeing issue. And the way that their workers were treated is horrible, and you never want to experience that. But also, you do have some responsibility yourself to make sure you know what the hell you're doing so that people don't get hurt, especially when you've embraced the responsibility that comes with working at a place like this on a product like this.
But I mean, that's what came out over the last 2 days is that everyone was saying, like, we don't have enough time. We don't know how to do this. We're rushing. And Boeing was just like, keep going. Like, I mean, I understand that there's personal accountability, but when they come to Boeing and say, like, hey, we need more time and we need more resources, I don't know. To me, it sounded like Boeing was just like, keep going, and I don't know, like, because I agree. At a personal level, you need to take pride in your work and understand that safety is going to be key in an airplane. But I thought that, it just was like a huge stain for Boeing, everything that came out of this, just in terms of.
Agree 100%. But again, I think there is a shared responsibility there.
Okay. Anna, what about you? Did this come out looking worse for the workers who should have taken a little bit more personal responsibility, or for Boeing that was pushing planes out the door?
I think, of course, that it is a combined problem. I do think that Boeing has a responsibility to impress upon this team, everyone's role in this, what the checks and balances they have in place are, what their job is, and how critical it is from a safety standpoint. Obviously, that stuff's not being said. The thing that stood out to me the most was this concept of turnover and high turnover. We see turnover leading to so many other problems in a workplace, not least of which is a ding to your quality. That's not always the case, but it so easily can be the case. When you look at the wording in these reports, it's simple. One worker said his team was in uncharted waters, frequently replacing these door plugs without any special training. That planes came in, quote, jacked up every day.
Yeah.
It sounds like these factory employees were engaging in sort of Wild West style problem solving. Mm-hmm. And that's not even recommended with your A team. So imagine a culture where turnover is normal. You have people in the trenches that are kind of learning as they go. That's terrifying when you consider like how easy it is to see your workplace like fall into dysfunction when you lose your tenured factory leaders. We've all been in workplaces there where like somebody that's key in leadership leaves and you realize how much they did. These are the people who have intuition around problem solving. They're the ones that know what makes sense and what doesn't by looking at it. When to be alarmed by something and when to run it up the chain, because it's a big red flag. And maybe those people aren't there consistently to the point where suddenly you have this staff that's running on just trying to get through the day. I feel like when you have turnover to that extent, you wind up in a situation where decision-making is falling into the hands of the wrong people and accountability, to your point, begins to slip away. And speaking of accountability, I read a separate report that said that they still don't know who is responsible for removing this door plug and putting it back on with no bolts. Mm-hmm. That ought to be a reasonably easy process of elimination, in my opinion, but clearly that's not the case here. And I think, we've said this before, I think it's a mistake to assume that these massive, longstanding manufacturing entities with big names like Boeing, they're the ones that are using track and trace and asset management tools and leading edge technology to like run their business. That those types of tools are capable of breaking the process down into minute pieces and tracking exactly what happens where and who touched it last and all that stuff. That stuff is available. Mm-hmm. So the fact that this type of tech is not integrated into this process, and these are critical parts that mean life or death, that is a big problem. And to be honest, like at a most basic level, you can't put a door plug on without rivets, and then that's the last checkpoint on that.
Yeah.
To me, it was like, how could that happen? That is a manufacturing process. Where is your quality control after that?
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of that, I think, props up when you see people with more and more specialized jobs. Like this person is an assembler and they only assemble this one piece. We hear about it all the time in machine shops where everyone has done their job, right? But you need someone that can look over the entire machine and say like, hey, all these cables need a special colored tag on them.
Right.
Everything here needs to be inspected and have this on it. And you're right. Like, that's a big part of that tribal knowledge that we're seeing walk out the door, and we need a suitable replacement. And when you talk about the tools and resources that are out there, like when you talk to the smaller players, what do they say when you ask whether or not they have like these kind of rather expensive programs in place? One of the things I always hear is they're just like, whoa, we're not one of the big guys. Mm-hmm. We're not one of the Boeings or Fords out there. We can't afford it. And it's like, well, maybe the big guys aren't even using it.
I think some of these big guys still have a lot of homegrown solutions that may be lacking in a lot of these historic type legacy, historian type functionalities that stores a lot of this information. And to Anna's point, if you've got somebody who's always done it and knows what it was done and wasn't as reliant on that software tool, that information's gone and there's nothing there to back it up. So I think that might be an issue as well.
Well, in this report came out of the first day, and after the second day, I was kind of joking that it kind of got worse for Boeing. So the NTSB chair, Jennifer Homendy, cited 2 employees who worked on the doors in Renton. And again, I understand that a lot of this is very selective, right? They want to, when the person said they felt like cockroaches on the factory floor, they were just like, earmark that one. That's the headline.
That goes in the press release.
That goes in the press release. So she cited 2 employees who worked on the doors in Renton who claimed that they were moved to, quote, Boeing prison or a, quote, cage after the whole door plug blowout. Homendy suggested that it could have been retaliation and said that sidelining the 2 workers runs against Boeing's policy, which is not to retaliate against workers for unintentional mistakes. The NTSB plans to survey workers in Renton about the company's safety culture. Really interested to see what comes out of that survey. Boeing, in return, touted its Speak Up program for reporting concerns about quality and safety, which
sounds like it's not being used.
No, it's the anonymous box outside your boss's office, right? The president of the machinists union, the local machinists union, said that Boeing often ignores safety concerns when it brings it up to them. And I guess so. After reading the report from day 2, Jeff, that's where I was just like, "Come on!" Boeing's like, "No. We have Operation Speak Up. They just text it anonymously, and we listen." And it's just like, no, if they were using these programs and you were listening, I feel like mistakes like this wouldn't be made. All right. Well, our next most popular story, taking a bit of a detour into a futuristic desert city that's going to hold renewable energy soccer stadium 1,100 feet above the ground. Playing a bit of footy real high. Saudi Arabia wants to host the 2034 FIFA World Cup, and they put in a bid that is intriguing. The country wants to make a stadium more than 1,000 feet high in a desert city that doesn't even exist yet. The stadium would be in the country's end-of-days development, the linear city called The Line. The enclosed city is planned to be 1,640 feet high, 656 feet wide, and 105 miles long. The city is part of NEOM, a $1.5 trillion infrastructure development project to, quote, reduce dependence on oil, diversify the economy, and develop the private sector. NEOM Stadium will have a capacity of more than 45,000 and run entirely on renewable energy, mostly solar and wind. The stadium's construction would begin in 2027 and end in 2032. If completed, this stadium will be at the top of the city, about 1,150 feet above the ground. Anna, this is something that A, super necessary, and B, just thinking about it, that like K25 building was wider than this line, by like 400 feet. Is it like wider than this entire city that's supposed to be 105 miles long is going to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure this out. And I went to the website for, was it NEOM? Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And tried to read through their About Us and just the most jargonistic, dystopian imagery. The whole thing, I'm like, ugh. I mean, so to me, I'm trying to figure it out. And I hope that you can make me feel stupid after but with some very reasonable data on why this should exist. I'm assuming it has to do with the fact that the desert is very hot and getting hotter, and that they're trying to build other things. I know they're trying to move away from oil. I get that. But I haven't quite connected the dots on how building this 100-mile glass-walled city that runs on solar is going to be this massive economic engine that's going to move them away from fossil fuels. I don't know exactly what the plan is there. It was very vague on their website as to how that works. It seemed almost like maybe these developers trying to privatize a city and create the largest HOA in the world and just make it all clean energy. And that's,
That's way less dystopian than I'm thinking okay, what do they know that we don't know?
I mean, what's glass going to do though? I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I could see if they're like, okay, well, let's just glass in a city and like turn on the AC really high, and then as it gets hotter and hotter in the Middle East, we'll have this.
They need a retractable dome though. They got to be able to seal this thing.
Yeah, but whether or not it's necessary, the timeline that they have on this thing is crazy to me.
Yeah.
It is 2024, the last I checked. This idea that they're going to have this somehow up and running by 2030, and there's been reports, as you said, about how they're maybe like going to have to scale back their projections of where they're going to be at the end of the decade. But they're really like, no, we're doing this. You know, they pared down some population estimates from 1.5 million residents by 2030 to 300K.
Yeah.
Still, 300K. They also, the same report that said that also indicated that just 1.5 miles of the estimated 105 miles will be ready by then. That's what they're projecting now.
A slight deviation.
Right. So I don't think the FIFA thing is like realistic, first of all. You're not like gonna have like this like half-built city and then just like quick. I don't know. It feels very like Chicago World's Fair to me. Like they're trying to like.
That's a really good comparison. But that'll be the part they build first. Just like, all right, we got to get the really tall stadium, and then we'll build out from there. Like
we got to get this stadium done, and then you get there, and it's like all it is, just a stadium in the desert that's like super
on
high.
Stilts.
I don't know. It's something that I don't know how you compress this into the timeline that they have laid out. And I also kind of think like if it is for climate related reasons, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but like if that's what they're trying to use some of the space that could maybe be uninhabitable at some point, and I feel like building the pod and asking people to get in when they don't have to yet, no one is going to do that. That's just my opinion. I mean, like to move to the middle of a desert and live 1,000 feet off the ground, walled in by glass. Like I can't think of something I would want to do less than that, but I am not their target market, so I don't understand. Jeff, what is your takeaway on this that I'm missing? Because I don't get it.
Well, and when you look at Saudi's Vision 2030 project here, they've got a lot of very aggressive ideas in terms of what they want to do. And what it all stems around, and I'll give them a lot of credit here, because what they're trying to do is build population, build industry, and become more economically diverse. So in order to do that, you need people. You need industry. So a lot of these things are focused on how do we recruit and get people excited about, let's be real, coming to the desert? Who wants to build a semiconductor plant in the desert? Well, you're not going to be building in the desert. We're going to have all of these specialized areas that we're going to build up for you. So that not only do you have a great place to have your factory, but you've also got a great place to live and work, raise a family, and all these other wonderful things that they want to do. Right now, Saudi Arabia has a population of about 36 million. That's less than the state of California. So if they want to get people excited about buying into their vision for what they want to become down the road, FIFA World Cup is a great recruitment platform. It's the most viewed thing in the viewed sporting event in the world. Not everybody's like me. I struggle to get into soccer, but I am definitely in the minority there. So if you're going to target some sort of event to showcase why people should come, why they should invest in your country and help build this infrastructure, this would be a place to do it. And building an elevated soccer stadium would get a ton of eyeballs. Now, can they do it in these timelines? Boy, I mean, they're super aggressive, but they've got the money. And if you look at what a lot of other countries have tried to do in developing or raising their economy, where they always struggled was the infrastructure. They had all the capital, they had all the industry, they had people working, but they never took time to put stuff in like water treatment, roads, schools. That's where Saudi Arabia is trying to start in terms of getting that infrastructure in place first, sort of the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come sort of dynamic. And some of the things they've got, like the one thing too that I was just want to point off, have you seen this Oxagon dynamic? Essentially, this part of Saudi Arabia right on the Red Sea, which is one of the busiest port areas in the world, they're going to build like a floating city is what they want to do here. So that not only will they attract just the logistics and the shipping and everything else that's coming in, but also other industries that could take advantage of being on the water, being close to this large port, essentially. So you have to, on one hand, be like, this is really far forward thinking, that they want to diversify and get away from just being an oil producing country to get into other areas to support and grow their country and their economy. I would agree that timelines are super aggressive, but I can also see if they can pull it off, especially the soccer stadium, that really does put you in a very interesting microcosm for trying to get people fired up to come out.
Is this more of a field of dreams, though, or like a field of nightmares?
Look, here's the thing, though. In all of these kind of outlandish type of projects, projections, goals, concepts, they've got the money, man. I mean, They have got the capital. If they want to build something, nothing's really holding them back except time.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that it's asking a lot to have people come and join this community. And I do get frustrated knowing that, if they they get the World Cup, then we're only like a year or two removed from like having to watch the Packers play in this thing, at some weird time.
Right now, it's kind of crazy. Saudi Arabia generates the second largest expatriate population in the world. So people are going to Saudi to work.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the appeal of going to not being like, I would go to the Middle East to, I have no issue with that, but like to this. You know what I mean? It just feels like so artificial to me, like if to live there. I don't know. I just can't imagine somebody thinking like this is a great place to raise my family, is this glass walled,
Well, that's just the line. I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly. Neom.
Yeah,
I mean, it is bigger than just that. The line is part of it, if I'm understanding it correctly. So,
well, the line is part of it, and I do think that the allure might be for people that do have more of a grim outlook on, what might happen as a result of like ongoing climate change and global warming, and some people might see this as a lifeboat.
Yeah, maybe.
Anna, you were talking about the reduction in scale. That's coming because the Saudi government is actually a little cash strapped right now. Well, okay, cash strapped / dropping cash reserves. So I wouldn't say cash strapped exactly. But they're stalling this budget. Their 2024 budget as a result of it. And it just like made me reflect on how, hey, it's budget season for everybody. Like it's budget season for the publishing industry all the way up to the $1.5 trillion infrastructure projects. This project in its entirety, like you said, it's going to have an associated resort, city building, other city building efforts in the region, and it's going to cost $1.5 trillion. That's crazy. But to Jeff's point, they have the money.
But for how long do they have the money? Say the oil industry like declines year over year forever.
Yeah.
Like what if it's a $1.5 trillion swing and a miss? I guess like they got to do something big, but
I think that's the way they're looking at it, because you're right. The use of oil ideally is going to decrease if we get smarter with transportation. I think that's where they are being more progressive than anybody else in that region and trying to get out ahead of it.
Well, it seemed like that was reason number one for them kind of taking these big swings, is because they see that coming and they're trying to figure out, okay, what does that future look like? How can we plan for it? And maybe be a big player in that as well. Mm-hmm. Still, that's a hard sell. Like, I mean, I just look at that structure and I just see like dystopian stacks.
It's a no for me.
How you have changed since I've met you, David.
No.
How you have changed.
He will only go if he can take an eVTOL.
I mean, well, yeah. Like
and
if
like
I could
land in a jet, wearing a jetpack or something.
If I could land my flying car on the stadium to get to my little 5x5 pod in the line that I house my family of 4 in, then I'm in. It's gonna be. I don't feel like it's gonna be as great living as it looks like in some of those renderings. All right, our next most popular story: engine design flaw caused fire aboard Staten Island ferry. A fire on a New York City Staten Island ferry caused some $13 million in damage, and now it's being blamed on a design flaw in the vessel's engine. In 2022, the Sandy Ground, which carries passengers between Lower Manhattan and Staten Island, evacuated 884 people when a fire broke out in the engine room. No one was seriously hurt, but a new report from the NTSB says the fire was caused by faulty engineering. The crew was trying to manage fuel oil levels when they closed both day tank fuel oil return isolation ball valves, which resulted in overpressurization that caused the fuel oil filters on the main engines to rupture. Fuel oil sprayed and the fire broke out. According to the NTSB, the sandy ground had fuel oil return isolation valves added after delivery, but did not have a way to relieve the pressure in the fuel oil return lines if both fuel oil return isolation valves were closed. The relief valves also lacked independent return lines. All these flaws added up to too much pressure. The NTSB also suggested that the engineering crew was undertrained and didn't realize the new vessels did not have relief valves. The NTSB issued a safety alert saying operators should know more about vessel design and operation. The agency also said that this is the second time in 2 years it's investigated a vessel fire caused by overpressurization. In 2021, a similar incident caused $1.5 million in damages on a passenger paddle boat on the Mississippi River. Anna, it is wild to me that we have these million-dollar accidents, multi-million-dollar accidents, and really the biggest lesson is still like, hey, we all should talk more.
We should talk more. Yeah, of course these boat operators didn't know about this, because I can't think of anything more traumatizing than like being on a boat and it's starting on fire.
Yeah, with
like,
1,000 people on board.
Oh my gosh, like how traumatizing, like for the passengers, like the operators, just scary all around. And you know, the article talks about undertraining, and you know, again, this is, I think, one of those process gaps that new technology can solve. For example, the operators in this case didn't. So they talk about a design flaw, but really also the operators didn't know that the valve design had been changed.
Yeah,
that's like just as big, or if not bigger, of an issue, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there should have been some redundancies built into these valves, right?
Yeah.
That was a problem with their design. But like, had they known, they could have done something differently in order to make this not occur. But you know, I think those are the kind of things that can be tracked and better managed. You know, when you have a fleet of boats like this, like we see this in factories as well. When updates are done piecemeal like this, you can't wait until the entire implementation is done and then be like, all right, let's talk about these new valves. We got them all in.
How to use it.
Yeah. So not only was it a failure of communication between install, maintenance, and operations, but I mean, I think it was a failure, honestly, on a larger level, because we've seen so many incidents involving boats, right? How many times have we talked on the podcast about boats that start on fire and sink and all these things?
More than I ever expected.
So crazy, right? And I realize that not all boats are the same in terms of size, application, equipment, but I do think the industry, much like manufacturing, they could probably benefit from a little bit more peer-to-peer awareness. You know, we talk about the gnarly stuff on this podcast that pertains to manufacturing and accidents and all that stuff. And it's not because we love talking about somebody's arm getting ripped off. It's because it's a good opportunity to put those circumstances into perspective, I think, for someone else. And, you know, we know that your plants are not all the same. But if you have rotating machinery or electrified equipment or tanks or conveyors, like whatever the relevant circumstances may be, you know, then you're at risk and you can take something away from a tragic incident that, you know, maybe applying some of that learning to some of your own methods. But in this case, like, as you mentioned, a similar accident occurred on another boat 2 years back, caused a big expensive repair. I'm sure that there are plenty of people who wish that someone would have observed that and taken note. Somebody who had like the specs on what they were doing here with these valves, but nobody did. So, you know, there's lots of finger pointing that can be done here, but I think that the ultimate takeaway is that, like you said to start, communication breakdown, people need to talk.
And as simple as a sign in front of each valve that maybe says like, hey, is the other valve off? Then don't touch this one.
Yeah, or if there's anything that gets swapped out, any piece of equipment that gets swapped out, like why that's not an immediate conversation, I don't know.
Especially when there's, I mean, it seems like not an easy thing to train for, but just like, hey, this is new. Things you should know, like a top 5, like what you should learn on the new system. I don't know. The biggest recommendation when we talk about sharing information was for the Coast Guard, the American Bureau of Shipping, and the International Association of Classification Societies, etc., all of them, to just talk more. And Jeff, that's like, I mean, I know that we've talked about it a few times on this podcast where like there'll be these huge updates to either your car or machinery. And it's like, it still comes down to like notified via email. Like you get a postcard in the mail and it's just like, all right, everyone's got to talk and get on the same level. So that way these things don't continue to happen.
I think it's also an appreciation of the environment that you're operating in. I think this is very similar to the Boeing story. Staten Island ferries carry 15 million people every year. I mean, this isn't something that's just a pleasure cruise across the bay. People are counting on this to get to their jobs, to their homes, to get back safely, all that. So to not appreciate that, when you're looking at a pressure valve, especially, which from a mechanical perspective is just way too simple to overlook. I mean, that's just basic mechanics right there. And the thing that did stand out to me was, again, the fact that the NTSB called out a lack of training as one of the biggest issues there. When you're looking at what is probably the equivalent of turning a valve.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what I mean. Like,
it's crazy.
It's like the signage is just if it's perpendicular.
If the pressure, if you see this reading, release the pressure valve. I mean, it doesn't seem that complex. What this honestly reminded me of is I can remember in college, my roommate was taking the fishing boat out for the first time. His dad gave him a list of stuff to do. Yeah. The first thing was like, put the plug in the boat. Oh, yeah. You know, went right through every single thing, even though he had been out in that boat hundreds of times. Yeah. Well, we got out there and all of a sudden the boat wouldn't start. Now, there was a gas tank. So, you know, still an electric motor, all that, pushing the thing would not start. Well, anybody who's familiar and kind of been in that situation where you've got lines running from a gas tank to a motor, pressure can build up in there as well. That's why they have a little button on the top of the gas can that you push that lets all that air out. Yeah. And then the fuel can flow into the engine, right? Very simple thing, but that wasn't on the checklist. You know, that's one thing that took a little bit of personal recognition of the situation to do. So again, I think it's one of those situations where there's definitely an organizational failure here, but also a little bit of personal accountability and understanding what is at stake, what are you working with here, paying attention to certain details that probably could have eliminated this on a personal level. Because this isn't, yes, there should have been some sort of methodology in place to release that valve, but there also has to be a technical understanding of something wasn't right here.
But they didn't know. They didn't know anything was different. As a lack of training, how can there be any personal accountability if you don't know that things have changed?
If you're looking at a pressure gauge and you're seeing the pressure going up and you're not doing anything, I think there has to be at least some personal investigation of what is going on.
But it happened so fast. Like, I mean, and I didn't read the entire report, but it looked like, I mean, they basically shut these both valves off. It ruptured and then there was fire. Like, I mean, I don't think it was kind of like they turned off both these valves and they kind of looked at a gauge and they're like, is it red? Red's bad, right? I think it's fine. According to the old manual, we're fine. Well, they didn't tell me anything new. Pretty sure we're still fine. Oh, do you smell smoke? No, we're fine. I don't think any of that happened. I think, like, honestly, it was just, this is all on the vessel operator. Like, and I understand there's personal accountability, but like, if anything, when it comes to personal accountability, they did a great job making sure everybody got off this thing safely. There were 2 smoke inhalation injuries that were to crew members. And I was also surprised that the manufacturer didn't plan for this scenario. Like, I feel like this.
Well, I don't think it was the technology. I think it was the implementation process where people were not trained properly.
Yeah. Well, and so I just wanted to call out one frequent commenter on the site. And while, like, you know, not always agreeing with things that he says, he did say, yep, the design was flawed. And he's actually agreeing with you here, Jeff. Yep, the design was flawed, says Jonathan Williams. It was not idiot-proof. And every time you think you designed something to be idiot-proof, you know what they come up with, Jeff?
An idiot?
A better idiot. So,
yikes.
I wasn't that strong.
No. John just coming out just all in on the human error. Just like, can't design for it all. All right, our next most popular story this week. Our most popular story this week. Ford patent details vehicles that detect and photograph speeders. Reporters with Motor Authority have uncovered a new Ford patent filing that could ruffle a few feathers. Get under your skin, get your dander up, get your hackles up, rattle your cage, be a thorn in your side, or rub you the wrong way, making you see red. The patent application is titled Systems and Methods for Detecting Speeding Violations, and it was published in July. The patent is for a, quote, speeding violation responder system that could use sensors to detect the speed of surrounding vehicles. If the car next to you is speeding, the system can activate a camera and take a photo of the vehicle, generating a record. Ford blasted initial reports on the patent, saying driving data would not be shared with law enforcement. But that's not the case. Ford blasted the initial reports that suggested that this data would be shared with law enforcement. Let me get that clear. That is not the case, as this would only be a feature built into police vehicles, automating something via built-in sensors that police officers are already doing. However, a variation laid out by the patent pertains to the way this tech might be used as a supplement to an overtaxed police force, outfitting autonomous vehicles with the technology. Ford stresses that the patent is intended, quote, to protect new ideas and might not even be used at all. Adam Ismail of The Drive said the patent proposal, quote, would turn every new Ford on the road into the police's ears and eyes. Anna, is this a real fly in your ointment?
You had so many of those.
And there were so many more. I'm just like, how much will they tolerate? And I feel like I got right to that line.
So when I first read this article, I don't know if I know a company is an inanimate object, but like you could almost feel Ford Corporation's eyes rolling when they issued the statement, because it was just so funny. Like you just feel the annoyed tone.
You're just like, oh, come on.
Like, guys, all right. Like, like they were so clearly annoyed. Like we're trying to make this for police cars. Like we're not. So what they were obviously trying to say was like, hey, we don't have any intention of this being incorporated into a regular passenger vehicle that's going to be driving by another vehicle, see it, take a photo of it speeding, and send it to police. Like, which that's kind of how I think people took it when they saw the patent at first, that like, what is Ford doing? Why would we want this? And it was especially pertinent, I think, because we had run that story recently about the self-towing feature that Ford had patented also to kind of like allow could be triggered if you missed a payment on your vehicle, so your car could repossess itself.
Yeah, auto repo.
Yeah, and nobody liked that.
No.
So when I saw this, I was like, no one's gonna like this. But it was just funny how they were like, all right, everybody made a big deal about it, and then they're like, we probably won't even use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But seriously, like you can kind of see Ford's side of it. It sounds like what they're trying to do is automate, as the article says, a process that's already being used. It's not like police don't already have scan tools and the ability to do this. It's sort of like smooths out a process that has some friction points for police, right? But on the other hand, you can see why the journalists that covered this initially were asking the kind of questions that they were asking. And one of them said, and let me see here which one it was.
Well, just because just because they said they won't doesn't mean they won't.
Well, yeah. So Motor Authority, they said that they felt the patent, quote, leaves unanswered questions about the limit and the scope, meaning law enforcement could be one of many possible use cases. And while that's true, to ask like how far could this go, I think it's important that journalists ask those kind of questions. Like, Ford isn't really responsible for answering them in the end. To be honest, like they're not, Yeah. And so I could see this being utilized on police cruisers easily. I don't think in any time in the near future we're going to see these deployed on consumer vehicles, because why? Mm-hmm. And, just the regulatory like hornet's nest that would come along with that. Like it just... like your vehicle providing the evidence to a police officer and the chain of that information getting passed along and the accuracy of it. There's a lot. It's sort of knotted. I just can't see that being like a method that police are going to employ. The idea of it being applied in autonomous vehicles, making those kind of like, automated speed traps, that's interesting. I don't I don't know how different that is than like any sort of automated speed detection mechanism, because there are more and more of those today as well. So I don't know, maybe we'll see that someday. But again, Ford is just doing their thing. Like, they don't have to really defend what they're doing at this point in time. People may not like it, but I don't think it's anywhere near like going to hit the market and like catch you because you drove past me and I took a photo of you speeding. I was trying to think of who you would be.
It's definitely me. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's definitely me getting caught by this thing over and over again. And you're right. It's something that police are already doing. There are tools like this that they're already using, but this would just be such an incredibly different scale. Because I think of how when you're in an entire like group of traffic and you're the one that gets pulled over. And this system essentially means that anyone that they can take a picture of around that cop car, everyone's getting that notice in the mail.
True.
They were speeding.
True. But like, you think about like, what is the line on overreach when it comes to an issue of somebody breaking the law and technology catching them? Because already like you can get a ticket sent to you in the mail if you drive through a toll station and you don't have your toll transponder. That happens already. Like this isn't really that different. I can see it being like a little bit better way to like proliferate the speeding ticket process, which nobody wants, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard to defend like why you shouldn't be busted for speeding if you're speeding, I guess. It's just I don't know. I'm not like for this by any means, but I'm just saying like. And I don't think it's like on the brink of taking shape and being out there in the public for use by me or you on our vehicles. But if they did it, I mean, they probably could figure out how to do it.
Wouldn't you love to push a button on your steering wheel and take a picture of those idiots on the belt line once in a while, though? I'm not even talking about speed.
Yeah.
I'm talking about just unsafe driving.
People do unsafe stuff all the time and do like, if it's triggered at like a certain speed, right? Or, like how much
like
how
if it
much
abides
over
by the like 5-year fine, 10-year mine mentality, then you're okay with it?
Well, like, there's a difference even in the minds of the police, what is speeding and what is reckless driving. If it is like reaches some threshold where you're like, this person is a danger to those around them on the road, like bust that person all day long. I don't care what method you use to do that.
Right.
Jeff, did this because it gave me the exact same idea in terms of the Illinois tollway, because I feel like many of us have gotten that letter in the mail, and a lot of times it's wrong because like it didn't read your license plate on your iPass or whatever, and so you get the note in the mail with your photos. I mean, now it's just you're gonna get an email with a video attachment, and it's gonna show you driving alongside the police. Probably me like around my back shoulder yelling at my kids, and just like, see, you're speeding, pay it.
Well, I mean, you were.
Oh God. Jeff, when it comes to privacy intrusions, you are in. You're just like, shouldn't have been doing that.
Yeah, you were wrong, David. You're accountable.
I don't know.
No, the bigger issue here, I mean, and if you read the patent, which was actually, I mean, you get into the NTSB reports, the patent's actually pretty interesting if you take a gander at that.
I'm into it.
To look at it. I think what should have stood out more than all the law enforcement potential issues is there is a lot of stuff talking about wireless connectivity, IoT roadside connections, different types of sensors and computing technologies that they're going to be using to identify this, gather this information, store this information, share this information. And let's be honest, the personally identifiable trait that they're going to be looking at is your license plate. Okay? That's what they're going to be using to identify you. So as soon as you can connect behavior, location with a person, come on. There are so many cybersecurity concerns that are going to emanate from this, especially when they even talk about one scenario where you're using infotainment systems in the cop car to then identify or obtain this information. They weren't just talking about they did talk a lot about radar and LiDAR in terms of getting the speed, but they also talked about a lot of different sensors and a lot of different miscellaneous computing technologies. So anytime you've got that many endpoints for data, you've got soft spots. And that would be what would be more concerning to me, because it seems like it'd be real easy to hack into something like this. Or once it's out in the police, it's only how far away is it really from getting into the criminal's hands as well? And how difficult would it be to send you some sort of false email saying, hey, David, I got a picture of you right here on the belt line at 8 o'clock. You were going 85. This all goes away when you send me, $300.
Never go 85 on the belt line.
Whatever the case is.
So I was late to softball.
So I just think there's a lot more concern there. I mean, I know people don't want to get tickets all the time. I'm one of them, but I would be more concerned about how they're going to keep all of this data secure.
So if it's a privacy concern, like from a hacker, bad. But if it's a privacy concern with law enforcement, good.
How is it a privacy concern? It's only it's a privacy concern. There's no difference between them if it's not secure.
I mean, the way you describe this, it's not just your car communicating car to car, but it's also communicating with other points throughout the entire journey. Like, I mean, isn't that an invasion of privacy where essentially they're tracking wherever you are with your car?
If it's only going to the intended individual who has a license to do that, which in this case is the police, that's one thing. But no. If it has the potential to be intercepted at any of these other places, that would be the bigger concern. Yep. The cops sending me a ticket is a lower priority in terms of my violations of my personal liberties than anything else.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the line? Like,
that one. I would much rather get picked on by the police than by a hacker, David.
That's fair.
And so would you.
That's fair. I understand that, but I just mean like, no. We're only gonna track you and your car when you're going 6 or more over.
I feel like we're arguing the exact same point here.
Yeah, but we're getting somewhere here, Jeff. No, I don't know. It's I look forward to looking into the patent because it does sound, we're not just talking about like vehicle to vehicle communication anymore because they changed it from V to V to V to X, which is vehicle to everything.
Yeah.
And when they changed that, I was just like, that seems like a bit much. But Anna, to your point about, I do believe this is not for this generation of vehicles. When we do see more autonomous vehicles on the road, I do think they could be outfitted with something like this. And, it would just be this entire like web of information just constantly being collected from it. And I'd be curious to see who owns that, because are these autonomous vehicles fleets? Are they owned by you? Like, I mean, are we all on some sort of like mass transit system where the city owns these autonomous vehicles that are used by everybody? All our, what was the one that was just shelved? Orions?
How do you feel about Google Earth?
Terrible invasion of your privacy. You got to know when the drone's coming over so that way you can be in the backyard posing. All right. Well, before we get into Google Earth, we have another word from our sponsor, our new sponsor, Better Engineering. Looking for the ultimate industrial washing system for your facility? Better Engineering delivers state-of-the-art industrial part washers tailored for manufacturing, food, and pharmaceutical processing. We integrate automation and robotics to eliminate hand washing, increasing throughput and water savings while using eco-friendly chemistry. Whether you need custom or stock cleaning systems, we've got you covered. Built to last, American quality stainless steel systems. Better Engineering, engineering clean solutions for a better tomorrow. Visit betterengineering.com to revolutionize your cleaning process today.
Well done.
Yeah.
did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
With a stamp on it. All right. Well,
With a stamp on it.
let's move on to In Case You Missed It, the stories that maybe aren't as popular on the website, but still could make a big impact on the industry going forward. Anna, what do you have for us this week on In Case You Missed It?
I selected a story about New York City deploying weather drones because I was like, what are weather drones?
Yeah.
And they are not what I thought. But they're still like, this is pretty actually cool idea. So emergency management officials in New York have turned to drones to warn residents with potential threatening weather coming up. So what they do is they send out this swarm and there's a buzzing sound in the background. The drone is equipped with a loudspeaker that flies over homes, warning people who live in basement or ground floor apartments about impending heavy rains. So right now, about 5 teams with multiple drones each have been deployed to specific neighborhoods prone to flooding. The city's emergency management commissioner said that the messages were being relayed in multiple languages. They were expected to continue until the weather impacted the drone flights. The article also said that 11 New Yorkers living in basement apartments drowned in their homes in 2021 amid rain after Hurricane Ida. Apparently, these basement apartments, especially in these low-lying neighborhoods, can fill up with water really quickly if there's heavy rains. There's an entire neighborhood in Queens that floods constantly. There are parts of New York City that may be underwater by the end of this century. I mean, there's a lot of issues there in terms of like managing the geography of that area and then the way people live in that city. So to me, like, it was an interesting story because one of the most, I think, interesting and impactful uses of tech that we've seen in recent years is in this application around extreme weather events. We've seen stuff that can offer extra seconds in the event of an earthquake, predicting when that's about to happen, better predicting hurricane timing. AI is now more effective at tracking weather patterns than humans are. So there's really accuracy that we've never had before. So I think when technology can be leveraged to make any of this stuff more survivable, and I lump these drones in with that, then I just appreciate those developments so much more. If you think about how many people would die before gas detection monitors were available, or there was a carbon monoxide detector in every home, I kind of see this like maybe there's going to be a time where we look back and remember like, remember when we did, because like the danger with flooding is that the risk range is vast, but it's really a hyper local challenge based on whether you are low lying or not. We get those alerts on our phones that are like flash flooding is happening in your area, but it's not happening to everyone. It's happening
not targeted.
To very specific people, right? Yeah. So I think the current methods that we have in place aren't really doing the job effectively, and they're not saying like, "Hey, David, you need to evacuate your home right now because it's going to be a swimming pool in the next like half hour."
Minutes, yeah.
So like, so the fact that these people are being targeted specifically where they are, where that is happening, just really cool use of a drone, I thought.
So when you said this wasn't initially what you thought it was, like, so for me, I thought these were weather drones that would be more in the atmosphere.
So did I.
More taking like, more real-time data measurements to like have better predictions when it comes to the weather. So that's what I thought.
Which those exist also. And again, it's all part and parcel for me of just like ways these can be deployed in different applications to keep people safer.
Well, and you mentioned some of the cool applications. They're using drones and AI to spot potential shark attacks. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, there's a lot of cool technology out there. My biggest question is, do you think it's going to work?
I don't know. It's a question you have to ask. Will people respond to it? But hopefully they use it only when it's very, very necessary, so you don't start to tune it out, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. Jeff, you think people are going to use it?
If one person uses it, it's worth it,
yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't think we need a high population of buy-in or a high percentage of buy-in as long as somebody is. And I think it's kind of showing again as this technology evolves, we get more comfortable and more familiar with it. We come up with better uses for it too.
Couldn't we develop something you mentioned like carbon monoxide detectors that would, like, let's say, or like a smoke detector, has to be by law installed in every room in new developments, right? Like, what if anything that was in like a low-lying area had to have some sort of device installed, that could either be operated remotely or, that would be a better detection system. I'm just trying to think of something that's closer to the person in the house. Like, I mean, if I'm sleeping during a storm, like a little drone with a buzzer is not waking me up, but maybe we could have some sort of siren that is installed in all these homes. Since it's not, that many comparatively, I don't know. I think maybe there could be an opportunity there.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're meant to be loud. I don't think it's like coming up to your window and being like,
little tap.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, guys.
It's raining pretty hard out here. And
touch of rain. You need to get in the basement.
Don't get in the basement. No, get out of the basement.
Wrong one. Like out of the basement.
Out of the basement.
All right. Jeff, what do you have for in case you missed it this week?
So I picked a story. We covered this early, a couple of years ago anyway. But excuse me, I picked a story talking about the software upgrades for Hyundai and Kia to help limit the theft. So basically, what we've seen is anti-theft software upgrades provided by those companies have been targeted by thieves. For those vehicles that were targeted by thieves, the theft rates have been cut by more than half, according to new research from the Highway Loss Data Institute. Theft rates of the affected automobiles soared after thieves discovered that these models lacked immobilizers, which basically meant you didn't have to have the key fob on you in order for the vehicle to start. They issued the software upgrade. So basically now that is the case.
Yeah.
The one sticking point is you have to lock the doors with the fob.
Oh,
So they haven't completely eliminated everything, but they have taken steps. I thought it was an interesting article, number one, because this was such a huge issue for such a long time.
Yeah.
And it took Hyundai and Kia a little bit too long to figure this out.
Yeah, remember sending everyone the club?
Exactly. So on one hand, they finally did come up with a good fix here potentially, but it took them a long time. And I think what it really brought up to me is a lot of that over-the-air software updates that Tesla is doing. So as I continue to do my waffling on Elon Musk and Tesla and all the stuff that he has done, that is one area that if other automotive manufacturers could really be embraced on a greater level, something like this could have been resolved much more quickly because it was a software upgrade that ended up being the key part of this. Now, why you have to use your fob instead of just being able to use the button on the door or both, that's still concerning. That doesn't seem like that would be such an advanced piece of technology to include in this fix, but they did something.
Yeah.
They did respond. So, and hopefully they've learned for future models.
No, I actually almost picked this one as well because a lot of times we cover a story in the heat of it, but then after, it kind of fizzles out, we don't kind of follow the thread, know. And I thought it was, you're right, like a seemingly pretty common sense approach to fixing the problem, but I was also kind of shocked that it only worked on half of them. Still, just like, okay. I mean, which is still, when we're talking about Hyundais and Kias, like that's a lot of cars to work on.
Yeah.
But, still a lot of potential thefts out there. So, hopefully another software upgrade is coming that works when you hit the button as well. Yeah. Anna, what were your thoughts on the software upgrades that are finally stopping some of these, what are they, the Kia bros?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that they're making some progress, although you wonder how much damage was done just by this perception now that the Kia bros and all their colleagues have that these are an easy mark, you're whether or not you have the software update, maybe somebody is more likely to approach your vehicle and give it a shot.
Oh yeah,
which is pretty alarming. And they also said it's really easy for this to not work. As you said, with the fob, if you don't use the fob. And then secondly, I wonder if in the eyes of the insurance industry, anything changes yet. Because for a while there, we were seeing lots of reports of people getting denied insurance policies for their Kias and Hyundais because of this issue, because the insurance companies were paying out so many claims on stolen vehicles. I feel like that might be a bit behind any of these resolutions on the automotive side, but we'll see.
Man, is it enough for insurance to say okay?
Yeah.
I don't feel like it is.
I don't think so.
Oh, well, they're on the right track.
On the right track.
Just a touch over 18 months later or whatever it is. All right. So I picked another update on a story that we initially covered just because, it's still developing and kind of getting a little hairy. So the story was growing chances that astronauts will need to switch from Boeing to SpaceX to get back to Earth. Now, I picked this story because we talked about how this was sort of a big deal for Boeing and not going so great. It was supposed to be a quick turnaround, 2 weeks tops, when test pilots Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams went to the International Space Station on Boeing's new Starliner capsule on June 5th. They planned to be home, worst case scenario, in late June. Well, it's August, and they could be up there for many more months, and they might have to find an entirely new ride home. So NASA has lingering uncertainty that Starliner can get these astronauts home. The space station might actually just cut the Starliner loose so it can just return to Earth empty. If that happens, NASA would have to leave behind 2 of the 4 astronauts from the next SpaceX taxi flight, which is scheduled for late September, so that way the vacant seats can be set aside for Wilmore and Williams, and the return trip scheduled for February. So, hey hon, worst case scenario, I'll be home late June, worst case scenario, and now that is February. A final decision is expected in the next couple of weeks. They said about middle of August. Boeing issued a brief statement, quote, "We still believe in Starliner's capability and its flight rationale." That is awfully optimistic.
What else did they say?
Awfully optimistic. I mean, just doesn't look good.
Nope.
Boeing came out and in a tweet said, "Oops. The problem is a matter of thrust, likely the seals, but no one can really figure out why the seals swell when overheated and then shrink back to proper size. These thrusters are the ones that push Starliner away from the space station following the undocking and, kind of keep the ship on the right trajectory. So real important. There are also helium leaks in the propulsion system." So I picked this story because, again, when we talk about it, I think in the grand scheme of things, we think of like the Boeing's MAX 737 issue, and we think like, okay, an issue with its Starliner project is kind of small comparatively. But I mean, Boeing's already $1.5 billion deep in cost overruns, and it needs to start flying regularly so it can start getting paid for some of these missions. But once they're there, like, who's going to want to go? Like, I don't know. This story I find very captivating, mostly because these astronauts are sort of marooned on the space station, but also how like deep into it Boeing already is, and how potentially catastrophic it could get for them. I don't know. Anna, what did you think about this update to the story? And I mean, I don't want to say this is like an I told you so sort of scenario, but like as they were planning to launch this thing, everyone was like, I don't know.
Might not be ready.
Doesn't look good.
Yeah, I know. It's terrifying to me. Like the thought of being stranded in space is like, I can't even think of anything worse. Although these people are professionals and they'll be fine. It's just like, ugh, what a disruptive, terrible thing. The other thing that I read that was crazy was that like, so because the bulging impacts like the thrust when it's moving away from the docking station, I think it's possible they might have to leave it on the docking station and just brick that docking station at the ISS, which would also be like a huge, cost to have to like figure out what to do now. I mean, it's not like they need it.
They can't just like let it roll. Like, it would take severe engineering just to make it capable of going back empty.
Right. So just like as collateral damage outside of this already like terrible snarl of a situation, there's that. I don't even like reading about it because it just makes me like, it turns my stomach, the thought of these poor people who are like just going up for a couple weeks and then they're just trapped out there. Oh,
just a little claustrophobic. I mean, it's kind of like being buried alive, but temporarily. Jeff, your thoughts on the latest news out of the Starliner project, and do you think Starliner is salvageable?
Well, at what point? I mean, people are still buying Boeing planes.
Yeah.
Boeing still has a ton of DoD orders. At what point do all these quality control issues start to come home to roost a little bit more? I mean, you have to start thinking twice about anything that has the Boeing name on it at some point here. I mean, that's the first thing that jumps out at me. I mean, we wanted this to be a win for Boeing. People were excited about this. They're doing something right here, and not so much. Yeah. So that's the biggest takeaway for me here. I don't know how they can. I don't think Boeing's going to back away from Starliner, and I know NASA wants it to work. They want to have different options. They don't want to have everything going through SpaceX or anybody else that they're going to be working with. They want options. But Boeing has to come through at some point. I mean, this quality control issue, it seems like it's stuck on everything.
Well, and so the new CEO, Robert Kelly Ortberg, is taking over, just toured the 737 facility. And I mean, his quote, he told employees on the first day of his job, "I'm excited to dig in." And it's just like, I mean, is that like, I mean, there's only upside for him, right? Like, I mean, Boeing's close to, I don't want to say bottoming out, but like, it's pretty bad.
That's the weird thing. They're not close to bottoming out.
I just mean like PR wise.
Fair. I totally get where you're coming from. It's just, when is this going to start really impacting? Their losses aren't based on losing orders. Their losses are based on an inability to actually make stuff that works.
Yeah.
I just think their brand and their position is going to start taking a big hit, especially if somebody else wants to start getting into making planes.
While he is excited to dig in, also said, we clearly have a lot of work to do in restoring trust, but he's confident that working together, they're going to be able to return the company to be the industry leader we all expect. So,
saying the right things.
Yep, saying the right things. All right. Well, before we get out of here this week, let's do our final thoughts. Anna, do you have a final thought for us this week?
Yeah. So it's getting to be that time where my oldest daughter's summer camp is wrapping up for the summer. This is a day camp, by the way. I feel like I have to clarify that every time.
Yeah.
Because people are like, she's been at camp for 8 weeks. And
yeah.
I'm like, not for like sleepaway camp. I'm like,
yeah.
I pick her up every day.
Yeah. I became very aware of like, it's camp, but it's not sleepaway camp.
Right.
Yeah.
Big difference. But they're doing field trips all week to like water parks and Wisconsin Dells and just blowing it out, like just finishing very strong.
Okay.
And then she has like 3 weeks of nothing planned where I'm going to be working from home a lot and she's going to be like listening to audiobooks and asking me every 15 minutes for a snack. And I'm just like I was wishing that they could have just maybe like eased out a little bit because I feel like she's going to be like, yeah, like just,
think of all the possibilities that Wisconsin holds. We can go to all of them, Mom.
Summer is amazing. I mean, her camp was amazing. And then I'm going to be like, all right, well, I will be on my laptop for a bit. And if you want to just like, play with the hose outside or whatever you like.
Let me tell you about the crazy possibilities that a hose holds. I mean, you put like one of those wacky arm sprinklers on there, hours, at least 8 hours of entertainment.
Well, I will call you when I need that pep talk again because I'm not sure. You can explain that to her when she's like trying to, I don't know. I don't think we're going to last very long.
Bored by day 2.
Day 1, yeah.
Yeah, like after lunch. So what are we really going to do today?
But what is your plan, Mom?
My final thought this week was actually kind of similar. Just it was we had the last game of our Wednesday night softball league, and it was just like that's always a reminder of like summer is ending. Mm-hmm. Just like and it's like nice because this is the short window where I really enjoy the weather up until it gets like crazy again. But just that summer may be ending, but there's still a lot of time to like get those projects in that you need to just get out and enjoy it. I think a lot of times people get sort of hamstrung or stuck because they think that it's over and they've missed out on a lot, but you still have a lot of time to get out there. And one of the things that we were just invited to participate in, and I'm super excited, is tomorrow we were invited to participate in a neighborhood Nerf war. Ooh. And I've learned of this development with this hour. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, what do we need to do? Do we need to gear up? Do I need to like head to the store and just start like buying everything? Do I go for something that's a larger caliber Nerf, or do I go for like something that is like one of those like 100 magazine things?
Are you gonna stockpile weapons?
I think so. I think that's the only way to go. And I've got to like orient them in the back of the RAV, so like that way there can be this dramatic where I lift up the tailgate, the entire family grabs, and then we just find no mercy.
I would recon the place and just hide stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jeff's done this before.
Oh man, do they make like just like a Nerf like bomb?
No, just like
No, but I know what you mean.
Doing?
Oh, I'm just curious. I don't know. Like, I haven't bought like Nerf.
How could you take it to that extent? I'm talking about like burying a gun or something, and you're talking about blowing things up.
No, not blowing things up, but it would be like a little.
I'm not talking about booby traps here, man.
Like a little booby trap that would just throw like Nerf darts. I'm not talking like. Okay, maybe that is too far.
Yeah.
Okay, well, fine. Well, all right. I mean, I think it's the entire neighborhood.
You should get out there and just like hide some stuff, put like a pile of leaves and hey, what did I find
in
here?
all the bushes? Yeah. Oh man, like in the scenario where like you slide under the deck and you've like taped like the Nerf shotgun under there.
Watch Red Dawn before you go.
Yeah.
And definitely wear some sort of like Rambo style.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And your whole family, like your kids. spouse. I would like to see that.
Like we can finally
Photo.
put like those like all those COVID bandanas I bought at the beginning of the pandemic because those were helping us.
Yeah.
We can actually repurpose those.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, need to get some
makeup.
face paint.
So if David is doing a Nerf war, Anna, what is the over-under on injuries that David comes in with on Monday?
Oh, no.
I'm saying he will have at least 3 body parts needing bandages and ice.
Yeah.
Should get like a sling.
I should. Oh, I have a sling.
Oh.
No. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so
But no, you're right. I mean, to that point, Jeff, like you immediately made me think like I do need to wear pants for this because there's gonna be sliding. There's gonna be sliding.
Yeah. It's supposed to be beautiful this weekend too. So
Yeah.
it's a good day to do it.
I was thinking like in just like some sort of tech vest with no shirt underneath.
Wow,
Yeah,
man.
going for it.
Just get the bandoliers or whatever. Just wear those across your chest.
Oh man, neighborhood needs to see that. Jeff, what's your final thought?
No wars this weekend for me, but this week I did celebrate 2 birthdays. My daughters turned 21 and 19.
whoa.
So to put it in David's terms, that's a combined 40 years of experience on this earth that I've been parenting.
That's
So,
right.
Yeah, just kind of a pause. I mean, with summer winding down, it's going to be crazy because all 3 of them will be gone.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to figure out like, hey,
Wow. Yeah.
echo.
Yeah, the quiet of the house. Well, happy birthday to them. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. Very cool.
I feel like that's going to be a wild switch. I don't know. I've only seen family members start with the empty nesting. And its results have been mixed.
I'm going to buy a boat. So we'll see how that goes.
I feel like
Aw.
that's a good start.
Yeah.
And outfit it with just piles of Nerf weaponry.
In the what?
I think it floats. It's got to float.
Why would I want Nerf stuff in my fishing boat?
You never know.
Now you know who to invite on your boat first. Not David. Me, the quiet one over here who's not saying weird stuff.
I'm coming up on a jet ski and just, you guys won't be prepared. Just like, it's Nerf or nothing. No, I mean, but no, really an invite to the boat would be nice. No.
Yeah, we'll see.
Get in line.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at in.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. Or subscribe to us on YouTube at IN Magazine so you can join us when we go live every Thursday and give us a thumbs up while you're there. All right, for Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells, I'm David Manty. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we will see you next week.